The left in America says that white farmers being murdered in South Africa is a non-story. Well, today on the podcast, we're going to meet the widow of somebody who was murdered in one of those farm attacks and let her tell you if it's real or not. All that's coming up on The Hot Zone.
This is The Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Today's podcast is one of the more difficult ones I've ever produced. And I don't want you to listen to this with your children in the car, or if they have any kids around, just send them somewhere else, because we're going to hear the story of Mariandra Heunis, a South African woman, the wife of a farmer, who her husband was murdered right before her eyes back 3 years ago, about 5 days before she was due to give birth to their first son. And the story is absolutely horrific, but I think it needs to be told. And so just be advised, there's some graphic descriptions of the murder in this podcast. And I want to let you hear the entire 20-minute interview, because I think that's the best way that we can honor her, by listening to her story and letting her tell the whole thing. So here goes.
I'm Mariandra Heunis. On the 1st of October in 2016, our house was broken into by two attackers while we were asleep. My husband and I fell asleep on the couch upstairs in the living room, and our oldest daughter, who was then 6 years old, fell asleep on a little mattress with us. We have had two other girls, and they were asleep in their rooms downstairs. So I was awoken by the dogs barking, firstly, and I got up and I tried to wake Johan up, looked out all the windows, walked downstairs, checked that everything's locked, everything seemed fine, and I just assumed it's a rabbit or a cat or something in the veldt. And then I heard a strange sound upstairs. I was 8 months pregnant at the time, and I thought it was our middle daughter coming up to join us in the living room. And I still remember looking over the couch, and I didn't see anything there, and it was the weirdest feeling to hear something, but there's nothing there. And I lay back down, and the next moment I heard what the police explained to me afterwards was the cocking of the gun. And as I sat up straight, the two attackers were standing at my feet with a gun pointed at me, and they started screaming. They demanded money, and of course I started screaming, and my husband woke up, and we calmly explained to them that we don't have money in the house, but they can take anything they want. We don't have cash, but they can take the TV, they can take the computers, they can take the car. He even explained to them where to find the valuables. And the one guy said, "This man is a killer, and he's here to kill you." And the shots rang out. My daughter woke up in this chaos, and she was running between her daddy and the mattress hysterically. They fired a shot at her. They missed, thankfully. They shot Johan 5 times right next to me. He rolled off the couch onto the floor, and they then came to me and they grabbed me up from the couch and demanded that I go downstairs with them. I refused, because I didn't want them to go near my other two children. And also, you hear about these farm attacks and you never think it'll happen to you until it does. And I didn't want to go downstairs.
Start that sentence again, please. She coughed back there. You hear about the farm attacks.
You hear about the farm attacks, and how gruesome it is and what happens. And you know it's a reality, but you never think it will happen to you until it's in your house. So when they demanded to take me downstairs, we had a little struggle. I refused, because I know if they take you aside, they normally rape you and then you get killed. So at that point, my little girl put her hand up and she said to them, "You want money? I've got money. I have a piggy bank. You can take my piggy bank. Just leave my mommy alone. And I still remember I wanted the floor to swallow her. I said to her, no, keep quiet. Don't move. And at that point, Johan got up for the very last time. And he gave 2 steps forward and he said to them, please. And it sounded like he was crying when he said that. My daughter afterwards told me that he, in fact, was crying. There was blood coming out of his ears, out of his nose. And the one attacker said, just kill him, brother. Just kill him. He still waved his hand like this. Both me and my daughter screamed and pleaded and asked them, please don't, to no avail. They pointed the gun at his forehead and shot him, execution style. So he was shot 6 times right in front of us. He fell forward on his face at my feet. They then stormed me again and they put the gun to my head and they asked me where the other children are. And I said to them, please, just leave. You've done enough. You've done enough. And without a word, they turned around, casually walked down the stairs, unlocked the front door, left. They only took our phones, so I couldn't phone for help. So in those next moments, I couldn't phone for help. So I considered running to the neighbors, which is too far, and it's in the middle of the night, and I was heavily pregnant with the 3 little girls. It just seemed too dangerous. So then I realized I had to make sure if Johan is dead, because I couldn't feel breathing, but I wasn't sure. And as I turned him on his back, I saw the head wound and his eyes, and that's where I had to decide to leave him alone there and get the kids to safety. So we got in the car and we sped off to the nearest fuel station, which is 10 minutes away, where we found the police and the ambulance, for what it's worth. That's what happened that night.
Did they ever catch the killers?
No.
Can you put it in a sentence, please?
Yes, they caught the one attacker, the one that gave the instructions. The court case is ongoing. I testified against him in December, and they postponed the case. So I don't know where it's going or when it'll resume. But the shooter, the police said to me, there's no leads. There's no leads. So, no. I still have no idea how they targeted our family. I've put quite a lot of research into the farm attacks after it happened, and still there's no indication as how they decide who's next, which is a big thing for, as part of creating this awareness, is that we don't know who's next. You don't know. You can have the security in place. We had electric fences, we had burglar bars, we had big dogs. They also, this is their profession, so they do their homework, so we don't know.
What happened to your dogs?
They weren't harmed in any way. I still, to this day, can't understand how they got past them. I don't know.
Okay. How has your family dealt with this in the 2 years, 3 years since it happened?
Well, it's a total destruction. There was nothing left after that happened. We were left with, that morning as I drove out the gates, he was our everything. He was our everything. And I had to leave him there between blood and police tape. I had to plan a funeral. I didn't know how to plan a funeral. I didn't know where to start. I didn't want to have a funeral. I said no. I have to give birth to this little boy, our first son, 5 days after the funeral. So that's basically where our new life started after AJ was born. That's where I decided I'm not giving up. I wanted to. I really didn't want to face everything alone. But when he was born, as they pushed him out the theatre, I was ready. I said, I'm done. I've done what I had to do. He's safe. He's here. And as they pushed him out, I realized he's so alone. He's so tiny, and he's alone. And that's where I decided I will not give up. I will get back up. I will give my children hope. I will give them the life they deserve. They will not be affected by this forever. Unfortunately, my oldest daughter is diagnosed with severe PTSD. She was on antidepressants. We see a traumatologist frequently. 2 years down the line, she is starting to heal. She has forgiven them, which is huge. It's huge. And I said to her, do you know what that means? And she says, yes, it won't change anything. And from there, she started healing. So I learn from my children more than where I'm trying to be this beacon of hope for them. Because in their innocence, and also the four of them, they each have a different way of dealing with this. They have a different way of dealing with the loss and the trauma. For Mika, the oldest one, the trauma is the biggest monster because she hasn't dealt with her grief because of the trauma. Our middle daughter, she has grieved intensely, but the trauma caught up with her now, 2 years later, and she deals with it aggressively. So she has this aggression. She's angry at them. She's angry at daddy. She's angry at me. We could have done more. Why didn't we lie to them and say to them, we have money? The youngest, she was 2 when it happened. And I actually thought she'll be pretty much unaffected by it because she was so small. But she misses him so much. She's on a light antidepressant now because she has nightmares every night. She remembers. She remembers. And they can, both of them that were in their rooms downstairs, can tell me exactly what happened because they heard everything. And then of course little AJ, he doesn't know our life now to be any different. So I think he's the one most untouched by it, although he also has signs, he also has triggers, loud noises, screaming, clapping sounds. It freaks him out. It's...
Has your faith helped you?
Yes, my faith. If it wasn't for that, I would be lost.
More about that.
Definitely. I don't believe that this is part of God's plan. I don't think he plans these evil things. People have free will. And this was people. They pulled the trigger. They did this. It's not God. He's there. He was there. He protected me and the children for a reason. Not that I say he let Johan die. There was no other way. And the one thing that I held on to after that, the first year, was he will make this work together for the better. He will take all this broken family and he will make it work. And that's what I held on to. And that's why I said I will get up and I will make the best of what we have left, where we are. And
what's been the hardest part for you?
The hardest part, I'm still battling with the trauma of that night. I'm still battling with the flashbacks and the triggers, and to see someone you love so deeply being so hurt, and he was killed like a dog. They had no regard for his life. And I actually asked the forensic team afterwards, I said to them, would he have had a chance of survival if they didn't shoot him in the head? And they said to me, Mrs. Heunis, he was already dead. I said, he wasn't. He got up, he spoke to them. They said he was shot so many times, he had no chance. So in a way, and I've battled with this, I've made peace with the fact that he's dead and he's not coming back. I struggle with how he died. And I don't think if justice is served, I don't think if they go to jail and they are caught, it will make me feel any better. Because it won't change anything, firstly. Secondly, they stay in jail for free, they get their food, they have a roof over their head for free, where I now have to work my butt off to provide for my children because of them. So I don't think it will make me feel any better.
The government of South Africa has all but endorsed these murders. How does that make you feel? How does that? I mean, that's just hard for me to even comprehend. I mean, how do you even work through that?
It's very hard. I seldom get bitter or angry because I feel it drains my energy where I can put it to good use. But if these farm attacks, they don't stop. They don't stop. It's almost daily. And we've become so used to it. We've desensitized completely because there's been another farm attack. There's been another murder. Oh, it's not a bad one. They survived. And I started classifying them as this is a good one, this is a bad one, and it's horrible because I can also say that surviving this is worse than dying because you have to live with it forever. So it's horrible to say it's a good one, they survived. But the government, they don't acknowledge it, they dismiss it. And that makes me very angry because they have special task forces for Save the Rhinos, abuse against women and children, even the cash and transit heist, they had a special. Why not for this? It's a daily occurrence. It's horrible. It's brutal.
Why do you think the government has all but encouraged these things with the kill the Boer and kill the farmer and the songs that they sing and things like that? Why do you think they would do that?
There must be I feel that they are complicit in these murders because they endorse these people saying the hate speech and it fuels this racial tension in the country. And it's almost like it's justified by apartheid. I've been asked many times, is it not just payback for apartheid? I mean, really, no.
But if apartheid was evil, then this has to be evil.
Absolutely.
Any second grader knows that two wrongs don't make a right, and it's profane to say that. It's vulgar to even insinuate that there would be any justification. To justify this would be to justify apartheid, because if the evil of this is okay, then apartheid was okay.
Exactly.
I mean, you could go the other direction. That's mind-boggling.
Exactly.
So when you see how it's politicized, when you watch how it's politicized in other countries like ours, in the United States, and it's called fake news by one side, what do you say to the people who say that these farm attacks are not really that big a deal, or they're not as common as people say, or that it's just plain fake news? How do you answer that?
Well, I'm a living example. There's many others in our country. There's thousands. Our story is one of thousands. And yes, I wish it was made up. I wish I could make this up. I really do. Sometimes I really do wish to say, yeah, we made it up. It's fake. That would be awesome, but it's not. It's so horrible that people say it's fake. And it happens to normal people. Normal, your average Joe Soap. It's not activists or... It's nothing. There's none of that. It's normal, happy families that it happens to.
Farming is not supposed to be a dangerous profession.
No, but it's the most dangerous in our country.
Can you say that in a sentence?
To be a farmer in our country, in South Africa, is the most dangerous job.
So can you say farming's not supposed to be a dangerous job?
Yeah. Farming is not supposed to be a dangerous profession because they're the providers. But in South Africa, to farm is one of the most dangerous jobs to have.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.